Hey everybody, and welcome back to another lecture with Coding with Roby. And in this lecture, we're going to complete our home.html file to at least give us a professional looking static file before we start adding dynamic ability to it. So the first thing we need to do is add in another link. This new link will point to the other CSS file, which is Bootstrap CSS. Currently, we have only the base CSS connected, so we need to do the same exact thing, but for bootstrap.css. So to start, we can just copy and paste this link. But let's just make sure we change this base.css to bootstrap.css. And now right under this meta charset UTF-8, we're going to want to create one more meta tag, but this is going to be a Bootstrap specific one, which will allow us to have a responsive web application. So let's start by saying meta within the tags, name equals viewport, content equals width equals device minus width, comma, initial dash scale equals 1, comma, shrink to fit equals no. And now let's change this title to do app. And that's just what displays at the top of our browser in the tab section when the application is rendered. And now let's come down to our body, and the first thing we want to do right above this Welcome to the FastAPI course is to create a div. And I'm going to do a couple spaces just so we can see the application better. So the first thing we want to do here is create a div. In a lot of IDEs, if you type in the word and then you do tab, it's going to automatically create both anchors on both ends. And now we need to do a nav, which stands for navigation, as we're going to be creating our navigation bar. And inside our nav tag, we want to say class equals navbar space navbar dash expand dash md, which stands for medium. Navbar dash dark, main color and fixed to the top, which means we want this navbar to be stuck at the top of the application the entire time. And now inside the navbar, we want to make an anchor tag, which is going to really have the title of our application. So A, class equals navbar dash brand, href, and href means where the application will go when this button is clicked. Except for we're not going to have this link configured at the moment. So we're just going to have # or hashtag, and we're going to call it to do app. And now we're going to be creating a button. And the button is going to have a class of navbar toggler, type equals button, data toggle, which is collapse, data target, which is going to be #navbar nav, area controls of navbar nav, area expanded equals false, and aria label equals toggle navigation. And inside the button, we're going to have a span, which is class equals navbar toggler dash icon. And now under the button, we're going to create a div, which is going to have a class of collapse space navbar dash collapse. With an ID of navbar nav. And inside the div, we're going to have a UL, which stands for unordered list, with a list and an anchor inside. So the UL, or the unordered list, is going to have a class of navbar nav. The list tag is going to have a class equal to nav-item base active. And our anchor tag is going to have a class of navlink with an href of just a pound or a hashtag that says home. All right, let's save this application and let's open up our file to see what happens. If we refresh our application, we can see that we have welcome to this FastAPI course with our to-do app and a home and a nav bar. If we inspect it and we shrink the application, we can see that we now get a little hamburger automatically. Now this doesn't do anything at this moment, but we can see that our application is becoming responsive based on the screen that we are associated with. Let's go back to our code. And under our nav bar, we're going to want to create another div. This with a class equal to container, which means spacing. So we're going to shrink this page after the nav bar. We're going to create a new card text center. So let's create another div. This class is going to be equal to card space text dash center. And inside this div, we're going to create another div of card header. And we're going to say your to-dos. And now under this your to-dos div, let's create one more div, which is class of card body. With an h5 tag of class card title, list of your to-dos, with a small p tag with a card text class that says information regarding stuff that needs to be complete. And also, we need to make sure our next thing is within our div. Let's do a couple spaces after our p tag to make sure we're inside our div. And here we're going to create a table. Now a table is just a list of ways to organize data. Let's make sure we have a class attached to our table of table hover. And within our table, we're going to saythead, which is our table headers. And inside our table headers, we're going to say tr, which stands for table row. And inside our table row, we're going to say th, which is the actual table header. We're going to say scope is call for column. And then we're going to say # as the first one. And then we're going to duplicate this 2 more times to change the information to info and actions. And now under the table header and before the table, we're going to create something called a table body. We can do this by saying tBody. Inside the table body, we're going to want to do a new table row, which has a class of pointer. And inside this TR, or table row, we want some table data. And this is what's going to actually present data to our table. So our first TD, or table data, is going to be 1. Our second table data is going to be take out the trash. And our third table data is going to have 2 buttons. One that's going to say complete and one that's going to say delete. So let's start by creating a button with a type is equal to button, and a class is button-success with complete. We're going to create another button, which is also of type button. This time the class is going to be button-danger, and the button name is going to be delete. And now let's copy and paste this entire table row 2 more times. Really all we're doing to make sure we have some data in our table. Let's change these numbers to 2 and 3. So we have a table, which is going to show 3 different headers. Inside those, we're going to have 3 different amounts of data. At the end of our table, we're going to create a anchor tag, which is going to have an href of # and a class that is equal to button primary, which says add a new to do. And then we can finally close off our 3 divs. And I'm going to remove our h1 tag that says welcome to this FastAPI course. And here, just like we did at the very top where we imported our CSS, we have to import our JavaScript. We can do this by saying script. And here within our script, we're just going to scroll back up here and take everything in this href path. Scroll back down. And right here, we're just going to say source equals what we just copied, which is going to be URL for static path, except for this is leading to our CSS stuff. We want to erase it back up to our JavaScript directory /jQuery-slim.js. We want to copy this entire script and do it again, but this time change it to popper.js. And then one last time for Bootstrap. And those JS files, again, are right here in our JS directory that we copied over. So Bootstrap, jQuery, and Popper. So make sure these names match this directly. It is also important to note that these 3 script tags must be in this order of jQuery first, Popper second, and Bootstrap as a 3rd script. Let's now save our application and let's open up our file. Let's refresh the application and voila! We have our home and our nav bar working properly. We have a card body with your to-dos Inside, we are saying list of your to-dos, information regarding stuff that needs to be complete. We have our 3 table headers, which is a £, info, and actions. Then we have our table data and our table row. So our table is this entire thing. Our table row is each element going horizontal. And then inside each table row, we're saying table data, which is this 1, take out the trash, with the 2 buttons. Now, none of this stuff is actually working. We can make the screen smaller, and we can just remove this completely to make the screen big. None of the buttons are currently working, but we definitely have a professional looking to-do application for our home screen. All of this information is static though. Remember, that's the goal of this, is to make everything dynamic and eventually add login authentication and registration. So then each user will have their own table to keep track of their to-dos. This wraps up the full guide on creating our home.html page from scratch, and I will see you in the next video.